Hey guys, here's the gear for today. I'll be using a Wolfman razor, and it is a 85 gap, and it's a brushed finish here with the H3 handle, stainless steel. Rest of the stuff is going to be the feather. This is my marathon feather, and my computer tells me this is going to be the 68th shave on this guy. Not a blade that usually lasts long for a lot of people, but it's working all right for me, and we're going to try it in this razor today. The Famine scent is a splash I used recently, and today I have the soap, and we're going to use it in this Paladin brush. Where was the Paladin word? There we go. What is that, onyx? I can't remember the name of the black material they have. It's got kind of flecks throughout. It's really kind of pretty. It's the keyhole design here, the shape of the handle there. The knot is not a Paladin knot. It is a Declaration Grooming B9A knot, which I know that I often like a lot. And we'll see about this one. It looks like it's going to offer some flex, some splay, and so I'll bet it's going to be an enjoyable experience. Get that back in the water. Had him soaking for 15, 20 minutes, something like that, because I watched an episode of The Jeffersons while I was doing some other stuff, typing all this stuff in my computer because the soap is new to me. And the splash I described a little bit in the previous shave, but this is part of the Four Horsemen line that Will of Barrister and Mann put together in the last several months. And I have used War and Death here on my channel. I don't think I'm going to buy the fourth one, Plague, because it's more herby, floral, that sort of thing, and I don't usually go for those as priority notes. But this one attracted me based on just some things that people were saying and not really the write-up itself. The write-up, I thought, it could have some good stuff, but I wasn't sure. But the things that people were saying about it with their own perspectives let me think that maybe I would really enjoy it too. And so a set that was used came online, and it doesn't look used, right? But I think it's used once. And so I bought it, and it was great because instead of paying full retail for just the soap for roughly the same price, maybe even a little bit less, I got the soap and the splash. So that worked out really well this time. Although I often do buy new products like this from the retailer just to support them and their business, because they are small businesses that need our support. So we will be loading that up in just a second. And here's all my dots on the back of the feather. So yeah, it looks like the count here on the dots is accurate. 67. Cool. This is my marathon feather. I started a while back. I put an X and a dot on it just to be kind of an identifying marker, like I did with my Nasset, but haven't used this one nearly as much. I'm about to hit 500 on my Nasset. All right, let's put it in the razor. The feather is a sharp blade, and the way it shaves me, it feels sharper than a lot of the other blades, and it can be a little rough in certain razors. If I am using a razor that I find aggressive, then the feather is often going to be worse than average, more rough than a lot of the other blades. However, if I find a mild razor or a medium to mild razor, then often the feather is very enjoyable for me now that my technique now for years has been solid. When I first tried the feather, being a month into this kind of shaving, I regularly would end up with 3 or 4 cuts during the shave. Well, this shirt's going to end up with some soap on it, I'm sure. All right. So I'm going to get my face wet, and then we will load the brush with soap. Shake a lot of the water out. I shook some out already during the break. But there we go. And then 25 seconds. Let's just do 25 seconds on the old counter there. I do feel some flex with the bristles. I started at the 20 mark, so we'll go to 55. Sorry, 45. We've definitely got some kind of sudsing and bubbling, as you can see. This is not an old soap. It hasn't sat around for a long time like many of mine. So it definitely doesn't need a long time of loading to kind of wake it up. So I did enjoy Famine as a splash after I used it last in the shave. And so I think I'm going to definitely enjoy it during this shave. Now, the funny thing about this Paladin, I've been on a search for Paladin brushes because some of their knots are really good, but it's taken me a while to find one. And when I do find one, then I don't quite like the handle. But that's the way it goes with used shopping with shaving products. I didn't think I would like the keyhole shape here, but it kind of it resembles like the classic Smogue handle with its kind of triangular shape. This ball thing is great for face lathers because it offers you something to grip and pivot around. But see, I'm not a face latherer, and so the ball is actually helping to keep my fingers away from the soap. And so visually I may not really kind of enjoy that shape, but ergonomically and practically it may end up to be one of my favorites because the other ones are just kind of short. I tried the Chief, just too small or too short. I tried the, what is it? Is it the PK47 style handle? And it's really kind of close, but I would love for that handle to be just a little bit longer. I tried the what's that flower? Lupus. Tulip. They have a tulip one. And I tried that one, and it didn't like that either. I haven't tried the Samurai. I don't think I'd like those jaggy edges on the bottom of the Samurai. It's kind of like this, but has kind of a roof jaggy edge going around the base portion here. Try the Cleopatra urn style. Didn't really like it too much. So, I mean, this is going all right with this keyhole style. This may be if I do find a Paladin knot that I enjoy, the keyhole might be the way to go. A little pasty right now. The Omnibus base is one I haven't shaved a lot with, maybe 6 or 7 times. A couple times it's fooled me with needing more time, more mature time in the bowl to bring it together, as in I got it to my face and realized it just needed more water and more mixing. I think that's because it just is a flexible lather that's fairly easy to whip together, and so it gives the appearance that it's ready to go when maybe I personally might like it to be a little wetter. We don't have a ton of soap right now that in terms of volume, but the knot is really quite large, and so it's holding a good bit of lather in it. And the type of lather that this Omnibus base generates, just like its predecessor, Excelsior, is kind of on the lower side. in terms of structure and volume. Kind of stays low and gluey almost. The flex that I feel as I'm moving the brush around in the bowl tells me that it's going to be a comfortable, enjoyable brush. The tips look really good in terms of softness, so I have high hopes. This is a good base in case you do wet it up too much, put a little bit too much water in it. It still works well. I think I had a little too much oil on my face last time I used Omnibus, and it really kind of killed the lather. It caused it to break down and kind of feel too wet. So I've got about 22 milliliters of water in this lather, and it might be about right. I think maybe I'll stop. Let's take a look at it, see how it behaves, just for your own education, if you're curious. You can see how it moves in the bowl there, how it collapsed. I like to get underneath it and then kind of lift it up like that, and you can watch how it moves. And a lot of it is in the brush here, and it is slowly moving off the brush. So that appears to be about right. In terms of the way I like this lather to be, that might be about right. But I am learning it, so I'm going to keep my kind of mind open and remember that. See if that's a good match. I may need to add more water. I am, because it's the winter, I'm going to bring in a little bit of warm water to my rinses here, just to try to get it up to lukewarm temperature instead of it being a frigid, ice cold rinse. High 40s lately around here. All right, this is a big old knot. In terms of looking at it where it meets the handle, it doesn't look very large, maybe 26 millimeters. But if you look at how much lather it's holding, how much splay it has, it looks larger. Now I'm feeling that density. Kind of doesn't have as much easy splay as I thought it might because of that density. And I almost guessed that, and I should have voiced it to you, but the band of white, here's the dark band. Of course, we got the tip white band, but the dark band here, it goes dark and it stays dark almost all the way to the handle. And with declaration knots, that is sometimes a foreteller that it might not have as much easy flex, easy splay as I might prefer. That it's going to have that backbone. Now the tips here are fairly soft. I think I am feeling a little bit of variation. My other B9As might have some soft tips, so you know there's a slight bit of variation even within a batch. But these are definitely comfortable. I don't think I'm liking the backbone here, and it's just due to all that density. It's just a little more than I might prefer. I may have never even shaved in a Henley before, and so it's kind of coming up to my area, so my shaving zone. So I'm not used to shirts getting in the way. All right, use number 68 on a feather blade in a 85 gap Wolfman WR2. See how the feather does. A lot of guys will say that a feather will shave them well for 1 or 2 uses, and then that's it. Let's see how ends up today. A little bit of tugginess here. And I am shaving off a couple days growth. Which usually results in some tugginess if I'm doing that with a marathon blade. So in a sense, it's not really a fair comparison. Quite tuggy, actually. But not because of the multi-day growth. I would keep using this blade. I would keep it in my marathon rotation because I think it's kind of unfair to, if I were to bin it and stop with its run just because I'm using it on a 4-day growth. If it were to feel this way consistently after only 1 day growth shaves, then yeah, I would say it's time to call that one. Other friends, other shavers have taken the feather to 100 before, so it does make it to 100 with some guys. All right, now I bet the rest of the shaves are going to be nice. The rest of the passes, and let's get a little bit of a rinse. If you have a brush that you're putting together, I encourage you to use silicone to do it because silicone can much more easily be removed. The knot can be pulled out of the handle and then reset. Sometimes that comes in great. It comes in handy because if you set it at the wrong depth, if you set it a little too deep and you discover that the brush is a little too dense for you, a little too much backbone, yank it out, put another washer in there or some kind of spacer to raise it up a few millimeters, and presto, it might then be a perfect brush. The other is of course true as well. If it's got too much flex, got too much splay, a little too floppy for you, set it deeper into the handle. With epoxy, it's pretty permanent. It's a lot harder to, you basically have to destroy the handle to get the knot out. It's not true with silicone, but it is true with epoxy. So now we're doing more of a normal shave. And look at that lather. A little bit drippy, but very slick. I think I have pretty much nailed the Omnibus this time. The feather is working well. Definitely, it's a mild kind of tugginess now. Nothing like before. It's moving fairly easily through the hairs. Still a little tuggy, but I have a feeling that 3 passes is going to be just fine. My Nasset usually doesn't get me clean shaven in 3 passes, but I think this one will. A little bit more right here. And a rinse. Oh, before I do that, I don't want to forget to talk about the Famine scent. It is very similar. It's pretty much the same as what I remember from trying out the Splash the other day. The big notes on Famine are he's going for a sense of dust and hunger. And that's in addition to the base notes that were common to all 4 scents in this series, which were citrus, resins, and moss. And yeah, I definitely enjoy this one. It's got interest, and it's manly. The resins and the dust. What's happening to make a dusty smell? I don't suppose I'm getting too much dust. Hunger. What is he using? It's yeah, dry. It's a little on the dry side, and kind of a little sense of woodiness, arid. Yeah, maybe some oud in there, something along that family. I'm just guessing here, but very, very interesting. Definitely atypical. Now we'll get that rinse going. Not a standard men's cologne kind of scent that I know of, at least. I guess I really shouldn't speak too much authority with that. I mean, it's just not that comfy men's cologne type scent. If I were to smell this blindly, I don't think it's too sinister. I think it's wearable. War is the one that has got people up in arms. I guess that's appropriate, right? But everybody's saying the other three are more wearable and not quite so polarizing. And now, the first two passes there, I think, have taken off 99.9% of my stubble. And this, you can hear it a little bit, but this is easily and comfortably moving across my skin and telling me that I'm in good shape here with the closeness. I do still feel the blade just a little bit, but loosely holding the razor, just enough to keep control. Very light pressure, as usual. Move the razor over the skin like a rake, somebody mentioned today on the forums, and not trying to dig or press in. And there we go. Any of that tugginess on the first pass, pretty much gone. I'm not going to be walking away from the shave with any of that. Still feeling the coolness of today's water is very soothing as well. Reducing inflammation, that sort of thing. The black shirt betrays the drippiness of this lather, and I definitely think I nailed it. It's very slick and well hydrated. The scent, I think, is really, really quite classy. Manly, but not overtly manly, not like in your face manly to me, and pretty much the perfect amount there with that 25-second load. I'm sure I could make do another pass or two with what I have left, but so that ended up to be pretty much perfect with that 25-second load. And I brought as a post-shave product Stirling Agar, which is an oud type scent, and it's the BaM. And I thought it might be friendly with this scent, and I really think I'm right. I really think it's going to play very nicely with the Famine. I'd like to do it while my face is still wet a little bit because it makes it easier to spread. I don't need a lot of the hydration benefits from balms, and so I don't need to put a lot on there, and I don't mind thinning it out, so that's good good for me. If you do have dry skin, you may not want to leave your face as wet when you put on a balm. After giving the brush a good rinse, got to get that soap out of there, otherwise it'll wear away at the bristles at the root level, and you'll start having bristle loss in a while. But I looked at it more closely, and while it is that onyx kind of color with the flecks and stuff, this particular design has these bees that are throughout. So if it's a more dominant look here, like the spot, that's a bee. I didn't forgot about that. I think I noticed it when I first bought it and looked at it. So in terms of the ergonomics of the keyhole, they're pretty good. I do wish it were longer. I'd have more grip, but honestly, it worked pretty well. So I'm happy with that. I think that knot may be a little too much backbone for me, like I mentioned, so I may not keep it around. And I do have other B9As on hand. The Agar definitely worked with this scent, and so that's very nice. It is a note that does work well with a lot of scents out there. Just disassembling my razor, I loosened it up and then ran some water between the blade and the head and all that to get that out. Put that over to dry on my little hand towel. We'll get to that more in a minute. Now with the oud around me in a more dominant way than the Famine, I'll take my nose back to the Famine and see how it relates after I've had the oud on me now. Yeah, that's enjoyable. I'm so glad I listened to people and read about this one, because that's interesting. It's different than a lot of fragrances out there. That'll be fun to use. Still approachable, masculine, that sort of thing. Do I think Famine when I use it? It's close enough to that vibe that I do see how it would lean that way, but it doesn't feel quite so desperate if I were to maybe do a blind use of it. And I think that speaks to the fact that it's more usable maybe than War is, for instance. I mean, War, really, you've got a hot metal scent going in there, and gunpowder, things like that, and that combined with the moss and the resins made it almost a cilantro kind of smell, and that ruined it for a lot of people. But for me, it's not an exact cilantro, and so I'm able to shave with War and enjoy War with thinking about it in terms of its components and the intentions behind those components, and I enjoy that. And I did not act in it just didn't repulse me like it did some guys. I mean, they rated it as one of the worst scents of the year. Some guys did, and that's, of course, that's valid for their opinion. But I was able to kind of keep it in its compartment and not think cilantro when I used it. And I thought about the hot metal and the gunpowder, and I was able to then perceive those notes out of it instead of the fact that it was similar to a cilantro-like smell. So, yes, the 22 milliliters of water is what we stayed with. That ended up to be perfect, kind of perfect. I might want to back off a little bit next time, and just for the practical purpose of maybe not having it be quite so messy. And I'm sure it would still be fine. But again, what a flexible base Omnibus is, and it did really well today. The oud, very nice. The Famine splash, I didn't bring it with me today, otherwise I would have used it and had both the soap and the splash be the same. But I didn't bring it with me on this particular trip. And I'm glad I got to try the oud type scent with it, because it's a good match. But using the Famine after the last shave, I was able to smell it on myself for hours after the shave, and I did really like it. It became something I found interesting and enjoyable. I am Sugar Daddy Shaves, and that's pretty much it for today's shave. You guys, wish you all the best. We're kind of still in the beginning of a new year. Happy New Year to you. that's it for today. Good night.